Hey, what's up, everybody? Ralph here. So I came across this article on The Hill. The title, New Proposed Rule Could Transform Student Loan Interest. So obviously, we got a huge student loan crisis, and, a lot of people waiting for this administration to cancel all of student loans, even though that's probably more than likely that's not going to happen. The administration has put in some effort to, alleviate some of the stresses that a lot of people, are having when it comes to student loans. And even more so, like, some student loans have been forgiven, especially if you're someone that's in the public service loan forgiveness program. I think, remember, there's a lot of people that are in that PSLF program, and I think it had a forgiveness rate of about like less than 1% or 2%. Most people that were in that program weren't getting their loans forgiven. So I think what the administration was doing, that they were finding ways to fix this, and they said, all right, you know what, let's revamp this program and fix it up. And a lot of people were getting their loans forgiven. I even know a couple of people, like someone told me that they have two friends that got $20,000 and $10,000 of loans canceled, eliminated, because they were in public service jobs. And another group of people that have been getting their loans canceled is if you were in a for-profit school, right, and you've been defrauded by that certain school, like Navy was a big one, where a lot of people are getting their loans canceled for that. So the administration has been putting a lot of effort in towards finding ways of canceling loans for people that are either in public service loan forgiveness programs or if they've been frauded by these for-profit schools. But in terms of anything outside of that, most people, part of that $1.7 trillion of student loan, they're not getting their loans canceled. And I think for what they're doing now is they're trying to find ways to alleviate some of that stress for a lot of people that have student loan debt. Right? So now they're coming up with a new, rule that's going to help in terms of student loan interest. They're trying to find a way to make sure that it doesn't get to a point where it's growing your loan. Because I know a lot of people that say, let's say they had like $30,000 of debt. They would say like years later that thing doubled, right? And that's crazy, all because of interest. That's not fair. Like, I'm not for the whole, cancellation of student loans, but I don't agree with the fact that, so much interest is put on these student loans, right? For whatever reason. So let's go to the article, right? So it says a new rule proposed by the Education Department could transform the way student loan interest is capitalized, possibly saving borrowers thousands. Interest capitalization is a lesser-known student loan mechanism that occurs when a loan, in a grace period such as deferment or an income-driven repayment plan, continues to accrue interest that's then added to the principal balance. So I guess what they're saying is, let's say people can't afford a certain payment. You get out of school, you can't afford a payment. What people are doing is, like, they're going in these income-driven repayment plans or these, deferments, right? They're deferring these payments while they can find a job, or they're able to find a stable income where they can make payments. But the problem is, while you're not making these payments, interest is accruing on this debt. Right, so I think that's what's happening to a lot of people, is that they're looking for jobs, they're looking for a stable job where they can make good money and they can make these loan payments. And while they're looking for it, they're putting their loans in deferment. And while they're deferring it, interest is still accruing. And that's why a lot of these people say years later their loans are probably doubling up. Right. Now, you can make the argument that's fair or not, but the fact that so much interest is being put on it, I mean, that's gonna put anyone in a bind. Right? It's gonna complicate a lot of people's lives in terms of wanting to pay down that debt. So the results in the loan's interest rate being applied to an ever-growing principal balance, something the department wants to change. It's proposed eliminating capitalization when a borrower ends repayment, exits forbearance, defaults on a student loan, or exits most income-driven repayment plans, saying it will help borrowers with the struggle to repay their loans. However, the proposed rule states there will be instances in which interest capitalization can occur as required within the Higher Education Act. All right, so the proposal limits help borrowers as students' loan debts in the U.S. currently totals about $1.7 trillion, while the average federal student loan debt balance is $37,000. Look, and I'll say this: like, Biden, they canceled a lot of loans, right? They were able to forgive, eliminate a lot of loans for a lot of people, but $1.7 trillion is a lot of money, right? So they say big student loan interest payments can create a treadmill of debt that many Americans can't escape. No shit. The interest payments often stand between borrowers and the financial freedom to focus on the future, whether it's buying a home, saving for retirement, or investing in their children, White House said in a statement. Well, of course, I mean, once you have that amount of debt is always going to be a barrier to building wealth, right? That's the easiest way to destroy your wealth building process. If you have a bunch of debt and that money's going to someone else, whether that, depending on the interest rate, anywhere from 5 to 25%, if you're giving that amount of debt interest to another person, as opposed to, let's say, if you put that money in the market and you're getting a good, whatever, 10% return, that's money you could have used to help build wealth, but instead it's going to someone else. So obviously it's going to deter people from being able to find financial freedom, whatever that means to that individual, whether you're trying to buy a home, save for retirement, or invest in children. It's going to inhibit you from doing that. So of course, that's what debt does. And this is why people need to manage their money better, right? Like, student loan debt is a huge barrier for people to just get on with their life. And that's what debt is. And especially if you're not good with managing money, then obviously it's going to stop you from doing the things that you want in life, right? So currently, the Education Department capitalizes unpaid interest annually during any period of negative amortization, which is when a borrower isn't making payments high enough to cover accrued interest or the principal balance. So what's basically happened is, like, when you're in deferment or you're in this income-driven plan, the payments that you're making is not enough to cover the interest, right? So what happens is, when it's not covering interest, it just continues to accumulate, and then by the time you know it, your loan is doubled in debt. So, and that's what they're talking about. It's like they don't have enough. The payments aren't enough to cover the interest that's being put on the balance, on the principal balance. So obviously, when you're making payments, if you're going to pay, at least make the interest payments. So therefore, as it grows over time, then your loan, your principal balance isn't doubled or hasn't increased in size. So negative amortization can happen in a few instances, including while a borrower is on income-driven payments, which allows borrowers to have drastically low monthly payments, even down to zero. However, while in IDR, payments are often too low to cover the cost of accrued interest that keeps growing despite regular payments, leading experts wanting further reform. About one in every three students, loan borrowers whose loan comes directly from the federal government, known as direct loan borrowers, is enrolled in some form of IDR, according to the analyst by Brook Institute. So removing capitalization is necessary but not sufficient. Negative amortization and interest capitalization work in concert, and so we have to address both of them. Sarah Sotomayor, Project Director of Education, Opportunity and Mobility in Higher Education Initiative at New America, told Changing America. I have a pretty simple solution to this, right? Many may not agree with it, but what you need to do is to remove the government out of the student loan business. Right? They're making it much more expensive. So think about it. The fact that these institutions are making so much money and they continue to increase tuition is because they know their money is guaranteed by the government. If you're an institution and you know that money is guaranteed, all you're gonna do is increase the prices for whatever reason. For, let's say you want to build new buildings, you say you got to increase staff, whatever it is, you're going to increase tuition because you know that the money is guaranteed. The government is going to pay the balance. They're going to pay the tuition, and then the person that's going to be left holding the bag is the borrower. Right? Because in the borrower, you got to owe it to the government, and you can't go in and you can't apply for bankruptcy when it comes to the government because they don't allow that. But if you remove the government out of the student loan business and you just make it between the institution and the borrower, then the borrower has a better chance of let's say if they can't afford, they can apply for bankruptcy. But see, knowing that these institutions are going to say, okay, this person's a risky borrower. Some people may not qualify. Right? And if more people don't qualify, what that's going to do is going to drive down demand, and it's going to drive down the price of tuition, because these institutions are going to know people can't afford it at its current cost. Right? And that's the thing what you need to do. Remove the government out of the student loan business. Right? Then you reset the market, and then people that can't afford it are going to obviously afford it. But then once the institution and the school see not enough people can afford it, they're going to drive down their prices. Right? And then the government can do, for people that struggle, that can't afford it, they could, give grants, right? Government grants, right? They could be like, all right, we can give you some money so you can at least apply it to the tuition and help them out. But to say that you're going to just back the whole student loan, say $50,000, $100,000, all that's going to do is going to put that person, that student, in more debt. Instead of getting out of the way, having students and institutions negotiate whatever the price is, and you'll come to a more secure, more even balance. But as long as the government's in there, it's going to continue to make it expensive for the student borrower. And the person that's going to be left holding back is the borrower, right? And they're going to owe the money to the government, which they can never get rid of, not even through bankruptcy. So it's just gonna make the problem even worse, right? So yeah, that's my solution. So. All right, so what they said is a poll conducted in January found that 62% of U.S. adults with federal student loans said that their debt negatively affects their mental health. And 81% said they've had to delay key life milestones like saving for retirement or buying a home to pay off their student loans. Of course, that is what debt does, right? Instead of being able to focus on using that money to apply on things that actually matter, that's going to further build your wealth or further your retirement, you have to give that money to someone else. And that's what debt does. And this is why people need to be need financial education, financial literacy, and understand how to use money, right? And they need to understand how the impact of student loans can have on their lives going forward. And it's funny because you would think that they would know that. Everyone sees when you've signed that paperwork, and obviously as an 18-year-old, you're like, I just need to go to school, like I'll deal with this afterwards. That's why it's like the parents should have a better understanding, have a more responsibility in terms of making sure that their children are not put in this situation, because every year we have this problem. Everyone knows of the student loan debt crisis that we're having. So I think parents have to do a better job of making sure that their kids understand. But you know what? Maybe a lot of parents don't have the financial understanding as well. So we live in a society where people just don't have that financial literacy, that personal finance education, and it's just continue to put people in horrible situations when it comes to finances. Right? So yeah. So that's all I got for you guys today. If you got any comments or questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. Hit the like button, share, and please do not forget to subscribe. All right? So you guys take care. Have a good one. Later.